Welcome back, MTG Joe here. Today we're going to be taking a look at our weekly meta breakdown for the standard format. If you're new to the channel and kind of this series, what we do is each week we look at kind of trends in terms of the top performing meta decks based on the MTG Arena ladder. If there's big tournaments, we'll also take a look at tournaments. And we're sourcing this data from a companion tool for your Arena client called UntapGG. It runs alongside Arena, tracks your win rates, gives you collection suggestions. So it looks at your collection, says you could build this deck or try out this deck type thing. In-game overlays to say like draw percentages, stuff like that. It's free to get started. The link is in the video description below if you want to follow through and get going with Untapped. But we're looking at standard for this video. We do historic and we'll probably do alchemy this week because there's a new drop with some cards if there's enough data right now. So you can check those out. We're looking at both best of 1 and best of 3. Before we jump into this, as always, if you do enjoy this type of content, make sure to drop a like and a comment on the video. And if you haven't done so already, consider subscribing to the channel. It's free and easy way to help support the channel. And yeah, jumping into it. We have standard best of 1 for March 13th to the 20th. Platinum to Mythic rank like we usually do, and we have 210,000 game sample size for the week. So jumping into it, we have up first the top performing deck of the week, Mono White Aggro, and we've seen Mono White pretty much at the top since the most recent set dropped, and this version here is kind of a turn back to the old version. We've seen Wandering Emperor be kind of the go-to card, an addition in the set. But we're seeing this version here just going back to like the split of Skyclave and Brutal Cathar, heavier on the 3 drops, reintroducing Sungold Sentinel to the list, as well as playing the full 4 of Intrepid Adversaries. I've seen some lists go down to 3, sometimes 2 even, if depending on the number of Wandering Emperors they play. So you have a lot more removal, so this version is probably better into the mirror. You have Portable Hole, Brutal Cathar, and Skyclave. You also have Legion Angel for your sideboard, kind of paired into that. 1 Eiganjo, 2 Caves, so not as many creature lands. We've also seen some of the versions go up to some numbers of Crawling Barrens in the mana base, just to have access to 3, 4, 5 even creature lands into the mana base. Second deck, we have Esper Control. So this is Esper type Planeswalker, search for black, white, or blue, add them to the list. So really what you're trying to do here is a control deck. You have a lot of removal in terms of March of the Wretched Sorrow and Otherworldly Light, Vanishing Verse. You have 4 Doomskar, 2 of Farewell as sweeper for catch-up. Some Celestus to ramp up early. Professor of Symbology is used as a blocker. Can protect your planeswalkers, and it also gives you access to a lesson board. So you're using kind of Kaido for card advantage, gives you an unblockable creature, a Niko Aris as a way to potentially deal some damage and kill creatures, give you some card advantage with the shards, so kind of a delayed Sphinx's Revelation, no life gain kind of way. And we have Sorin, card advantage, lifelinker in terms of attacker or blocker. Teferi, untap, tap shenanigans. You're able to untap your lands as well as Celestus to give you 2 mana. So it's potentially on turn 4 can cost you only 2 mana. It also is a reoccurring way to gain life in the deck, as well as gain some card advantage. Wandering Emperor. So you kind of see a theme here. A lot of these cards can provide you card advantage, potentially could gain you life, and in some way protect themselves. Either with like tokens or stuff like that. You have a Kaya, which is pretty much a support card. In the deck, it's used mainly as like removal options, so it doesn't necessarily have a run away with mechanic. It does have the emblem, if you can hit it, that you just kind of recur your planeswalkers. Lolth, just a really good grind card. You're playing a couple more of like the utility lands. You got to haul the Storm Giant, and then you have your lesson board here at the bottom. Deck that's kind of new this week to some extent, and I love me mono red, so if I saw it before. So this is a mono red aggro list. I've tried out a couple mono reds, they felt kind of lackluster. So this version here has got a kind of artifact sub-theme. So you have Patchwork Automaton, which gets bigger every time you cast an artifact spell. There's kind of the combo with Reinforced Ronin, which lets you kind of get an artifact every turn to cast and trigger it. Kumano kind of puts some buffs onto your creatures. You have Bloodthirsty Adversary, which Majority of the time, this deck's just going to be a 2-mana 2/2, but you do have the option to flashback Kami's Flare with all the modified creatures to deal 3 to a creature and 2 to the permanent, as well as Seismic Wave. So a lot of your creatures are bigger than... Oh, sorry, this only deals to opponent's creatures. So against mono white, stuff like that, it's a one-sided board wipe. Potentially. You have the Storm Seekers for haste, Kaiju, or Raiju. I was thinking Raichu. That allows you to kind of put more counters on things, get some modify going and deal some additional damage. And then you have Ogre-Headed Helm that lets you kind of refill your hand and gives you another modify target. So one thing with like Untapped, you can see like I'm missing 2 Ogre-Head Helms. So I need 2 cards to craft. If you look at my collection right now, I just spent some rare wild cards this morning, but I have 7 rares, 14 mythics, a bunch of commons and uncommons. We have some Crawling Barrens in there, some Dens as creature lands. The one thing that seems a little aggressive to me is having 3 legendary lands. Like, while you do want to hold these at times, I think 3 is probably pushing the limit, just because you're going to run into times where you're going to have to play out a land, tap the mana, tap the existing one, and then play out the next line. So you might kind of screw yourself over. Sorry, I should mention, if you're interested in these deck lists, I will post them in the video description if you want to grab them. We see Naya Humans, 62% game. Pretty good sample size here, 2,600 games. This has been a popular deck for some time. It's basically mono white splash green and red for Halana and Alana, Sigarda, Champion of Light, and a Minsk. So just kind of gives you some buff and lets you go a little bit larger than like the traditional mono white. So less removal, more hard hitting. We see Naya Ruins. So basically very similar to that in Alchemy. This is actually kind of close to my configuration. I was playing Hallowed Haunting as a Mirror Breaker. I went down some communes of the spirits, but basically drop one of your Jukai Naturalists, Runeforge, makes all your runes cost 0 mana. You chain them together with like Showdown of the Skalds or Generous Visitor, buff up like a Kami or any other creature, kind of kill your opponent that way there. I really enjoy this deck. I played the Alchemy version and I was like 70-ish% win rate before everyone started teching for the deck, but got Mythic pretty early with that one. Another deck that we've seen kind of on the periphery, this mono blue tempo, they're calling it mono blue Delver deck, 58%. We got a couple new additions. So you have March of the Swirling Mists, which can phase out creatures. So again, just kind of playing to this tempo spot. So really with this deck, what you want to do is get like Ascended Spirit or Delver down early, and then you kind of either protect that creature, control your opponent's board, or just kind of chip damage, 2 damage here, 3 damage there, and you just kind of slow them down while you just kind of over the course of 5-6 turns kill them like that. Essence Capture counters creatures, puts counters to buff your thing. Spectral Adversary can get attackers or blockers out of the way, is another threat. You got Spell Pierce, Fading Hope for bounce, Geist Snare, you have a lot of spirits, so it's a way to counter like that, and then Thirst for some card advantage. I said this last time when we saw this deck, it's pretty free to play 1 to 2 Hall of Storm Giants in here. Like, you do have the snow mana for Ascendant Spirit, but I think just having some flood insurance and just a creature land is pretty good value to have in there. So that's best of 1, kind of the standout decks for the week. If we're looking at best of 3, same time frame, 24,000 matches. So this can be upwards of 3 games played. So say 60 to 82,000 games, somewhere in that range, roughly. Mono White is the top deck right now at 66.7, so 67%. And this version here, we're seeing like the Wandering Emperor, really good and kind of like just grinding him out. Every mode on this card is impressive. You got some Valorous Stance in the main board, protection and removal. This version is opting to go Skyclave Apparition over Brutal Cathar in the main board. But otherwise pretty stock. This is the version where you're seeing 3 Crawling Barrens, 3 Cave of the Frost Giants, just maximizing your creature lands. If your creatures die, you just always have outs with your creature lands. If you look at the sideboard, another Wandering Emperor, you have your rest of the Legion Angels, maxing out on your Skyclaves, plus your Brutal Cathars for interaction, some more portable holes, Valor Stance is removal, March is just flexible removal, and then Guardian of Faith for like the meat hook or sweeper-heavy decks. We see Selesnya Ramp. This is another deck that showed up last week, but just kind of bigger mana. It's like a mid-rangey shell. You have Arcane that's really good against the Runes deck, even sometimes against mono white, depending on how low to the ground they are. But you're really trying to accelerate from 2 mana to 4 mana, where you have like Eska's Chariot, Wandering Emperor maxed out. There's kind of a token sub-theme here. You're able to copy like Angel tokens with Eska's Chariot, same with Amiria's Call. You have your Sharn that fetches you more lands, kind of paired into that. See similar like Legion Angel package, Welcoming Vampire provides card advantage, board wipe insurance, removal or sweeper protection. Class is kind of to grind out games, and then Circle of Confinement as catch-all removal for like a lot of like the mono white decks like that. They usually curve out at 3. Finally, lastly, Orzhov Control we see for the week. This is just one of the variations of, usually there's like a black-white Blood on the Snow, Meat Hook deck. This one's probably more mid-range focused. It's only sweepers main or 2 Meat Hook Massacres. You have Concealing Curtains, not Concealing Courtyards. That's the black-white land, fast land. Early blocker that can eat away at your opponent's hand, your Duress mains. You got Luminarch and Silver Quill. So between Duress and Curtains, you can see your opponent's hand. You name stuff with Silver Quill to kind of tax them. You have an enchantment package, a 3 mana, restoration hits your lands, gives you some bodies. There's a lot of stuff you can reanimate as well. Wedding Announcement as just a lot of bodies and an Anthem effect. You got the Emperor, you got some Ballings, Lolth to grind things out. So it's a little bit more of a mid-rangey grind as opposed to like the Treasure package, Deadly Dispute style that we've seen in the past. 3 Hive of the Eye Tyrants as the creature land package, 1 of each of the legendary lands. Then you just have flexible options. Like if you want to grind, you have these 2 Planeswalkers. Farewell as a sweeper for catch-all, Soul Shatter for like the dragons decks, anything Goldspan, big creatures, Go Blank for control or grindier matchups. Another Verse, Infernal Grasp, Blood Chief is just a smattering of different removal options for the matchups at hand. So that's pretty much it for the week. Let me know in the comments what deck you're playing, how it's going, if you're crushing the Mythic ladder, if you're up to the top. Any kind of new tech or stuff that's there, let me know in the comments. But otherwise, thanks for watching. Have a great one and stay safe out there.